Hello everyone and welcome to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah and today I'm excited to share 12 kitchen gadgets or appliances that you might not actually need anymore and that you can declutter right now or after you finish the video. So that being said, I do want to clarify that with these kitchen appliances, these are things in my own experience that I have not found necessary, even though I do love cooking and cook often. So that being said, if these items are things that you use all the time, then by all means, hold on to it and use it, keep using it. But in case you can relate to what I'm saying and think, I think I've got one of those lying around and I haven't touched it in years, then maybe it's time to let those items go. So regardless, these are in no particular order, just things that I personally have found for myself, either that I had at one point, or maybe I have thought about getting and realized that I don't actually need them. My first kitchen appliance that I don't need is a mixer. I did have a mixer for a while and I really liked the idea of it, but growing up, we were never really a family who used a mixer very much. You know, if we were making cookies or something, we just used our hands and a fork, and it didn't take that long. And so then when I did have a mixer, I found that it was rarely used. I know some people use it for whipping cream and that sort of thing, but I'm not really doing that anymore and just don't really see much of a need for it. And personally, I haven't felt limited by not having a mixer. There hasn't been anything that I've wanted to make that I couldn't because I didn't have a mixer. So for me, it's definitely something I don't need anymore. So I decluttered it several years ago. The next kitchen item that I don't need are choppers and slicers. They make so many of these that you can find at like a Bed Bath & Beyond or something that's just kind of insane. I don't think I've really had too many of them, but the idea that with these different choppers and slicers, yes, maybe it does seem easier or maybe safer at times than using a traditional chef's knife. But I know for me, when I have used these in the past, it can be kind of tough to clean these. Sometimes a lot more tough than if you were to just clean an actual chef's knife. And I can't really justify having the item there when a lot of times if I've already got the knife out and I'm using it for something else, then I'm not going to go get an additional gadget, use that, make it dirty, etc. So for me, I don't have any of those specialty choppers or slicers. Another kitchen utensil that I have very recently decided to declutter was a waffle maker. Now, I would say we got our money's worth out of this item, but since we are trying to reduce the oil that we have in our diet, it's kind of tough to have a waffle maker without using a lot of oil in those different products. And I never had that much luck with the different batter combinations I was putting together, especially since I was trying to eliminate some of those unhealthier items like oil. And so because of that, I just don't think it's very useful when I can do very similar things with waffles, like with pancakes, and just have those in, you know, a non-stick pan that I would have otherwise. So personally, a waffle maker, it's kind of bulky and we weren't even using it that much in recent months. So I'm going to be getting rid of that. Next up, having a lot of specialty bakeware might be a spot where you can look to declutter. If you are someone who has, you know, regular cake pans, great. If you have muffin tins, great. But do you have a lot of the extra stuff? Do you have certain cake molds and shapes that you don't actually really use anymore? Do you have a bundt pan that you don't actually use? If you are someone who bakes a lot, maybe you do have some different designs that you used once, you bought them for a specific purpose that you had and used it for, but then maybe don't need it anymore. So that's a space where you can reduce the number of items that you have and be able to declutter the rest. Next up, this kind of relates to the choppers and slicers, but a zester. Now, back when I was completing my chef certification, I did buy a zester because it was one of the items listed and I wasn't really on my minimalist journey yet, but I have found that a vegetable peeler works just as well. I was recently recipe testing for a dessert for my upcoming cookbook that had some orange zest in it, and the vegetable peeler worked just as well. So that might be something you no longer need. Similarly, an apple corer I recently got rid of because I can just use a knife as simply as it would be to actually use the device to core apples. I recently got rid of my rolling pin about a year ago when I realized that, first of all, I'm not really using the rolling pin anyway. I don't really have the patience for that. And the types of recipes I was making didn't really require it. But also, if I need to roll out a surface, I can just, number one, use my hands and press down the surface, or I can use a cup instead to roll out the surface. It doesn't work as well, but since I hardly ever needed it, it didn't really make sense to hold on to. Now, some people who are really into baking and following all the rules with baking might disagree with me about this, but 2 additional things that are more so baking oriented that I personally have never used. Number 1, a cookie scoop. I just use a regular spoon and I don't have any issues with that, and it just saves a device. And then also a sifter. So if people are sifting out flour and that sort of thing, again, I've never used a sifter and I don't have any issues with baking and that sort of thing. So those are things that I never needed and it hasn't really hindered my results. Next up, if you've got any extra decorative dishware that maybe only is used once per year, that could be an item to really think about if that item is necessary. Now, there may be different like family pieces that you've passed down, so I totally understand if there's some sentimental attachment to that. But if you are someone who kind of has separate dishes for different holidays, maybe you don't actually need to have all of those. I'm not advocating that you get rid of all of your decorative dishware, but it could be an easy place to look if you're trying to reduce what you have or you need more counter space in your kitchen cabinets and think, is this item worth keeping if I haven't used it for 364 days of the year? Just a thought. Next up, if you have any duplicate items that you don't really need duplicates for, it's very common for a lot of kitchen equipment to be sold in multiple packs. So rather than just getting 1 or 2 mixing bowls, you have 4. Rather than just getting 1 or 2 pots and pans, you have a set of 12. These can really add up if we're not careful, and well, they often may come in handy. Do we actually use all of them? Do you use all of them at one time? And so for Jake and I, that was definitely something over time we thought, okay, do we need 4 mixing bowls? No, we have 2 of them now, a bigger one and a smaller one. That works for us. Do you need all of those different items that are included in those sets? Probably not. Unless you are someone who has a really large family you're cooking for, or is someone who is, you know, consistently putting together really elaborate meals where each item has to be prepared separately. And I know for me, even though I'm someone who loves cooking and is preparing a cookbook, I find myself not really needing a whole lot besides 1 or 2 of all of the basic devices. So that can be an easy way to look at the extra items that you're holding on to that actually aren't necessary. My last type of kitchen appliance or gadget that might be something to declutter now are things that you have not used in a really, really long time. These could include specialty products such as a bread machine or ice cream maker, some of those types of things that maybe are very specialized that some people might use often, but maybe you don't. Think about where you've got kitchen gadgets kind of hiding out that you're not using regularly. And those might be a great option for something to let go. So those are 12 kitchen items that personally I don't need, and maybe you don't need them either. Of course, if I missed any kitchen items to declutter, please leave those down in the comments below so we can all benefit from that. I am actually putting a second part of this video up next Wednesday, and that video is going to look more so at the kitchen essentials that I use in my minimalist kitchen. And you can actually subscribe to the channel if you're not already, just so you don't miss out on that video. And I've got some other related videos here. We look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Bye.